Hello? I would like to begin by saying thank you to those who are new subscribers to the channel. It is really wonderful to have 1 or 1,000 people watching the videos for any number of reasons. I enjoy entertaining people. I enjoy sharing my opinion. I enjoy hearing people's opinions. And I enjoy sharing interesting facts that people really may not know about, and things to consider. So, there's a number of benefits to it. I was looking at trends on YouTube for things that were interesting to me and good subject matter, and came across a number of pieces I thought were really curious and some fun, some noteworthy to comment on. And we will do those tonight. The first one that comes to mind, is trolling. If you're not familiar with trolling, essentially it's commentary, but almost a very loose form of harassment. Very loose, because technically it's legal. And I suppose my perspective on trolling is that just because you have the freedom to say something doesn't mean you have to go out of your way to say something. I feel that we were talking about this one particular troll, whatever you want to call it, named Milo, who made some comments about a woman named, I don't remember her name, Leslie. She's been on SNL before, and she's got a very deep voice and a very imposing figure. And he called her a name that I would rather not repeat because there's really no reason to repeat it. It wasn't a vulgar word, it was just more pointless to say it. Once again, I defend anyone's right to speak their mind. I believe you should have that right. I think that's something that allows us to keep truth out there. And if you harness it under any circumstances and say, give the government control of what is truth and what is not, then there will be no truth. So, I defend freedom of speech 100%. However, that said, it does not mean that I believe you should go out of your way to berate, insult someone. I believe there's plenty of ways to expose lies with rational and logical information, and not by just saying you're a big dope. That's when it becomes emotional, something where you're trying to impact someone. That's what I feel both campaigns are doing. Trump and Hillary are going on your emotions But I believe Trump's behind that is logic. That's why I support him. Most important, I support the United States of America. And so I'm not a big fan of trolling if you go out of your way to hurt people. I don't mind whistleblowers. I think whistleblowers are beneficial to the country, especially when there's corruption that needs to be exposed. The challenge is there's so much in media bias on both sides. It's a larger span with liberal media, your main network and such, networks and such, because Fox News is more of a niche audience, even though they have a large audience, and the others are more sort of spread out, and they have a wider influence because of that. But the point is that I think whistleblowers for corruption on any side is very significant and important. I've been telling people for a long time on my Facebook that I believe Trump would be the nominee. I did believe that there were opportunities for which they could try to stop him, and that they could have stopped him, but those did not come to fruition. It was a little over a year ago now that I predicted he would be the nominee. I predicted at the time, though, his running mate would be Ted Cruz, and clearly I was quite wrong about that. And rightfully so, because I don't have a lot of respect for Ted Cruz. But be clear that I am not a Republican. In this instance, I will vote Republican when it comes to Trump. That does not mean I'm going to vote Republican down the line. For example, I'm not a particularly large fan of Rick Perry. I believe that he shows tremendous ignorance, or he's just, and I don't mean that to derogatory, but I mean just his knowledge is very limited. So maybe I should use that word. And or he's just not a very good speaker. I also believe he used his position as governor as leverage to try and push someone out of their job when it had nothing to do with corruption within their work. He threatened to cut funding to a certain department if the head of that department did not resign. But it was because of a personal thing he disagreed with her on. I think it was drunk driving or something. Of course, you know I don't like drunk driving. But her addiction should not impact your providing funds for a department that may help citizens in a positive manner. That's just overstepping the bounds of your position. So I do not unilaterally support Republicans. And I'm willing to look at their flaws. See, I don't think Trump is perfect. I think he's a very mediocre politician as far as speaking is concerned. Don't think he's great on the teleprompter, but he is what he is. But I think the information and the intention behind his actions are positive for the U.S. So, with that in mind, let's go a little back in history, and I would like you to tell me, as today's trivia question, what is a score? Abraham Lincoln talked about it. What is a score? It's kind of an old definition of it, but if you could find it before I tell you, then hey, you're doing well. But I'll tell you what it is later on. So, moving away from politics for a second, I want to talk about something that I saw with Kevin Hart and Bill Nye the last couple of days. Before I start with that, I wanted to share something that shows the general ignorance of people. And it's not because people are bad. It's just because people have been given the wrong idea about things. So, I was watching these two YouTube vloggers, which I really can't pronounce their name, nor do I have any desire to try and humiliate them. They were talking about, going to a museum and seeing these exhibits of people who lived in the North American continent before it was actually turned, at least to the area we live in within the United States, before it was known as America. And they said these guys were like the original Americans. They were like 1,000 years before. They were the original Americans. No, they weren't. The United States of America is a country, but it's a country based around that idea. So it could be Russia. Russia itself has not always been under the same kind of leadership that it is now. Not always. Nor is it true that people who were here 2,000 years ago within this continent under the same kind of principles that the United States were based on. They may have been settled and lived in what we know as North America now. It does not mean they were Americans. It means they were settlers of this continent. They didn't have the same ideology, the same proof. It just didn't exist. They may have had some resemblance of it by their own ideologies, but it was not under that banner. So, I'll move away from that. Just, in other words, my point with that is, if you want to know about history, go look up history. Don't just go, okay, well, 2,000 years ago, they were the original Americans. Because to the best of my knowledge, the original Americans were the ones that started here right around 1776. We weren't actually a country officially until about a year later, I think. But it all started in 1776. Thus, 4th of July. The Revolution. But anyway, let's get away from that. I wanted to talk about something that's not political. I wanted to talk about Kevin Hart and Bill Nye. So, I saw these two men interviewed in different videos from YouTubers. And I really liked it because they both had a very positive message, in my opinion, about effort. And it was identical. Their own words, but identical in concept. They said, work hard now so that later on, when you reap those rewards, you can look back and appreciate where you are now because of all the effort you put in. And you see the worth and the value of the rewards and the benefits you are receiving now as a result of that hard work. That's how people get ahead in anything. And some people get ahead by billions, some by thousands. It doesn't always mean that hard work is going to turn you into a millionaire, especially if that's not really your goal. If your goal is, I want to be an engineer chances are you're not going to be turning into a millionaire. But you're putting in the effort, the education, the study, the apprentice work, the time, the effort it takes to develop your skills and pursue that. And that gives you such a sense of strength. One of the things that I mentioned, the lady Leslie, I don't know her last name, so forgive me for that. I just don't know her work that much. But she was the one I was talking about when I was referring to trolling earlier. So this lady is not, by conventional standards, meaning, skinny, large, memories, by those glam magazines perspective, beautiful. This is not how they define it. But that's really not the point, other than to say she pushed to succeed very hard. She had challenges, I'm sure, that she faced that I wouldn't understand by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm sure I have the same for as her, but I have the same, my own. Excuse me. But she worked hard, and look where she's gotten to. She's a solid working actor, comedian. She's been in feature films. Everything doesn't have to be perfect as far as the kind of work she does every time, but it's steps, and she puts in the effort, and she's accomplished a lot. That is so inspiring, and it should be to everyone who has a dream, who worries whether they can make it. Because in show business, entertainment, there are so many occasions, 90% of the occasions, where people are judged by looks, by their appearance. And there is a 10%, and these are usually the people who are the most interesting to watch and who go the furthest, because they never let anyone tell them what they could or could not do, and they succeeded. So take that with you. And this is where you have to develop a thick skin. People want to insult Leslie. I hope for her sake, and because she deserves it, that she just said, whatever. You mean nothing to me, because they don't. Words can only hurt you if you don't know who you are. And if you don't have confidence in your strengths. We all have weaknesses. We all have things that we can improve upon. But there's a strength that you have to realize that the only way people can really hurt you is that they physically take action against you. They physically assault you. Or if they really try to manipulate you, which is words, but insults, I usually knock it down to jealousy. It's just people never understand why they don't get ahead, while other people do who they may not deem as worthy as they are. But you know what? Their effort just added up. And sometimes, there was this wonderful young woman, I think she goes by Superwoman on YouTube. I just subscribed to her, and she said, you know what? You know why I'm not in a relationship? Because I'm dedicated to my career. And that is what you have to be sometimes. You have to make sacrifices. This is sometimes why relationships in Hollywood and mainstream show business don't work out. Because people have chosen to commit themselves to their craft, the business that they really want to work in. And they're setting up so that 20 years down the line, they're still working. Because they're established, people know they're professional, they're dedicated, they go in, they do their job, they do it well. And I hope you can take away from this that it's just a matter of dedication and commitment and belief and strength, that no matter what anybody says about you or says you can or cannot do, usually it's jealousy. Sometimes people say it to see how hard you'll push back to prove them wrong, because they want to see what your strength is, but many times it's jealousy. Don't let someone else's hang-ups be your hang-up. Go after what you want. Make videos if that's what you want. Become an engineer. Work in aeronautics. Whatever you want. It may be hard, but there's a great line from the movie, I think it's A League of Their Own, where he says, the hard is what makes it great. It's what makes it worthwhile. Because 50 years down the line, with your kids or your grandkids, whatever it may be, you can say, I am where I am because I put myself there. I worked with good people. I put in what it took, and I succeeded. The answer to today's trivia question is 20 years. Score is 20 years. Abraham Lincoln talked about it in the Gettysburg Address 7 years ago. The United States was established, or we know it as in 1776, in 1863, 87 years later. He said 7 years ago. The score's 20 years. And Kevin Hart and Bill Nye both said that. Kevin Hart said one more thing that I'd like you to take away with you. So if you're in school or something, he used the example of the projects he's worked on. He said he buys watches or something, but he likes watches. And he had this really nice watch on when he was talking to this YouTuber. And he said, whenever I look at that, that's a resemblance of that time when I was working on that project and the effort I put in and what it meant to me. And he said he's proud of everything he's ever done. I think that shows tremendous personal strength to know that things may not always be perfect or exactly what you want. You did your best, put in the effort, and he's proud of it because he did his part. You don't have to worry about what everybody else thinks. You have to worry about how you feel about yourself. It doesn't mean that you can't have compassion and appreciation and respect for other people in humanity. But if it interferes with your confidence and belief that you can achieve something, then you can't hold on to other people's opinions. You can take them into consideration, but don't let them influence your dedication to something. This doesn't mean you shouldn't use common sense. So if someone says, don't go into a rough neighborhood late at night, thank you, without, some source of protection or, without a friend or whatever else, that's common sense type stuff. I'm talking about when it comes to pursuing ambitions. If someone says you can't be an actor, that's not what people like us ever make it as. That's very few. Those people are rich. They know this. You know what? Don't listen to that. Because they have no idea what it took for Leslie to get there, for Bill Nye to become successful, for Kevin Hart to become successful, for Superwoman on YouTube to become successful, for Shay Carl, for whatever else. They don't know their story. They don't know where they came from or how they got where they are, other than what they've seen on video. There are things behind the scenes that we never see that we have to appreciate. We don't have to appreciate, but we have to understand we don't know about. So just believe in yourself. Just keep pushing forward and don't let anybody stop. Don't let anybody stand in your way of pursuing something. And if you're going to do something, make it something that positively impacts your community, your country, the world, humanity, existence. Not all of them, but at least in some part that makes the world a better place. When you're gone, leave a little gem behind. All right. Don't forget to leave the trivia answer below. Remember, to participate in the trivia challenge, you must be a subscriber. You must like the video. I can tell if you like it or you don't like it, by the way. You must like the video. And you must leave a comment, excuse me, in the comments section with the answer to today's trivia challenge. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Be well.